Hi, and welcome to Matt Holman Talks Mental Health, the podcast where I have the opportunity to sit down and chat with amazing humans about their journey with mental health. For this episode, I'm so happy to introduce Sadie Rose to the conversation. Welcome, Sadie.
Thank you.
Lovely to see you. As always, I'll just do a very brief introduction, how we know each other, and then I'll let you do your introduction so you can tell everybody all about you. Sadie and I have known each other for a few years through our love of the business travel world, actually, and importantly around the subject of travel well-being and supporting travelers. Sadie was working for a business in that sector when I started coming out and talking about mental health and travel and everything else. And of course, we clicked because we shared similar views and passions towards supporting more people. So we've known each other for a couple of years, I guess, and it's just been nice to stay in touch, keep up to date with what's going on. Sadie's had a change of career recently, so I know you're going to talk about that too. But yeah, pleasure, lovely to see you, and welcome. Do your introduction.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to talk to you as always. I'm Sadie Rose. I'm based in East London, currently working from home, as most of us are. Yeah, I'm a yoga teacher, teaching online, and I have also recently joined My Online Therapy as head of partnerships. So My Online Therapy, we work with organisations to support their clients and all their employees with their mental health and well-being. And absolute pleasure to be here today and talk to you.
Brilliant stuff, and we'll get into some of those experiences as well as we go through the conversation. But as always, the big question of this is your journey with mental health. I know you've got a story, so I'm just going to sit back and let you tell your story, please, Sadie.
Yeah, absolutely. So my journey with mental health, it's like quite a big, scary title, isn't it? But
don't let it be. Don't let it be, please.
Yeah, no, of course. I've always been aware of mental health and ill mental health. I as a teenager struggled with anxiety. It for me was that feeling of operating on a kind of fight or flight mode a lot of the time. It was just something that I think I sat with, and I just used to get quite panicky about things, and didn't really ever identify it as a mental health issue or anything like that. I just used to always say, oh, I just feel a bit anxious, or I feel a bit panicky. And I went to university. I actually studied psychology, which again really fueled my passion and interest in people and how we operate. I think people are incredible, and the way that we can support ourselves and each other is amazing. And so studying psychology, I think, actually also kind of brought it more to the forefront of my mind. But when I was at university, my anxiety kind of grew, and it started to manifest in insomnia. So I really started to struggle with my sleep, originally around exam time. So when I was having exams, I just suddenly wouldn't be able to sleep all night. And I just, again, thought, oh, it's exams. Everybody gets stressed about exams, right?
Yeah.
So it's nothing serious. But then I came home for the summer, and I, like everybody, not everybody, but a lot of people, spent my first year at uni eating cheesy pasta and drinking bottles of rosé before a night out.
Right,
and so I think I did put on a little bit of weight, but I've always been the small one. I'm 5'2". I'm petite. I have always been small, and so my weight had never ever been something that had crossed my mind. I'd never thought about dieting or anything like that. I never watched what I ate. I kind of ate whatever I wanted, and that was just how it was. Food wasn't a thing in terms of something to be worried about. It was just part of life, and
sure.
You'd always have family dinners, and it was just never really an issue. And my mum, she taught me to cook and all that kind of stuff. But then I remember coming home that summer, and I went to a friend's house, and her mum, sadly, her mum struggled with alcoholism, and she could be quite direct, I guess is the word. But she said to me, and I was 19, I remember specifically her saying to me, oh, it's really interesting, isn't it? Because, so I was sat next to a friend, and she said to the friend, you've lost so much weight, you're looking very thin. And my friend said, oh, I don't think I am. And then she turned to me and she said, but you, oh, you know, a lot of people are saying, all you know, the boys, because she used to work at this company with some other guys that were our generation, and she said some of the young guys are saying, what happened to Sadie? You know, what happened to Sadie? Because, you know, you've put on weight, haven't you?
Wow.
To put it into context, I was always 8 stone, and I'd gone up to about 8 stone and 3/4. So
right. Yeah.
So
not a huge change.
No, not at all.
Wow.
It stuck with me, and suddenly food became a thing, and I went back to uni, and I started to have some quite disordered eating habits. That's when it kind of started. But again, I think the important thing is to know is that I have never been underweight.
Yeah.
So I've never actually been underweight. I developed these obsessive thoughts around food and around eating, and then that started to impact my choices that I was making. And again, it kind of came back to that anxiety, that control, and if I was feeling a little bit anxious or a bit stressed about something, well, food was something that I would control. And it was more for me around a thought pattern that I couldn't get myself out of, obsessing about something that I'd already eaten or what I was going to eat. And then that kind of came in waves, I guess. And I graduated. I went on to, you know, get a career in financial services, and it's interesting, I think, and especially as you know, I know this is going out at a later date, but we've just had International Women's Day, and when I worked in financial services, I felt like as a woman, I needed to have this very strong persona, not let my guard down, not share, not be vulnerable. That I really felt like I had to have a work me versus a personal me. And I think that, yeah, any kind of disorder or mental health problem, it feeds off secrecy, right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And so it's just something that I wouldn't share. And it wasn't always present, you know, it would come in waves. And then I started to really then focus on my own kind of personal development. I really career focused. I was, you know, really working hard. I was promoted a few times at work. I was headhunted. I went to another company. But for me, I always felt a little bit of a disconnect between my values and the kind of the industry that I was working in. So I worked with a coach. She was amazing, and she helped me to learn about my strengths, my values, what I was interested in. And I then decided to do a bit of a career change and move into the health and well-being sector, which is how I met you. So I moved to London and went to work for another organization, and absolutely loved it. Really felt like I was living in line with my kind of truth, my authenticity in a professional sense, but still kind of struggling to get to know who I really was. And then this thing around food always still kind of existed, and then I had the insomnia still in there. So you know, I think I've shared with you before that I would have periods of time where I was a real successful salesperson, but I sometimes would have 2 hours sleep and then get up at 5 a.m. to drive for 2 hours to go and do a massive sales pitch. And it just got to the point where I couldn't operate like that. So I did have a period of time where I went on medication, specifically for the anxiety and insomnia. But for me, I really needed something else. I wanted to look at it holistically. And so looking at it holistically, I started to think about yoga, really inspired by my mum. So my mum has always been a big advocate of, you know, personal development, and she qualified as a yoga teacher when I was a teenager. I think I said to you before that, you know, when I was a teenager, that wasn't cool that she was a yoga teacher, whereas I'm a yoga teacher.
Full circle.
Exactly.
You turn into your mum or something. Is that what they say?
Yeah. I feel it every time. I can hear her voice sometimes coming out when I talk.
Oh, really? Oh dear. Well, I don't mean that in a bad way. Not over.
You know, she's an incredible human.
Sorry to your mum if she's listening. I didn't mean that in any harmful way.
No, she's incredible human, and so she's always encouraged me to look at it, think holistically. And so I really started getting into the practice of yoga. And for me, I started to really appreciate my body and learn more about my body and the amazing things that we can do, and learning to meditate and to just breathe. You know, I think I spent a lot of my life breathing like this, like and operating in that kind of space, and being really highly strung.
Yeah.
And actually yoga, it gave me an outlet, as did exercise. But on the eating side, I then started to develop something which actually, you know, has a term. So it's called orthorexia,
Yeah.
and it's an obsession with clean, healthy eating. And I became very just obsessed with everything being what I perceived as clean, healthy, kind of fueled by the media, I guess. And I think there's a fine balance, isn't there? Because eating healthily is fantastic, and food is a wonderful way to keep you healthy. But it's about recognizing when it gets to a tipping point, and I never recognized that for a long time.
Right.
So I would go home and I would, you know, look at my mum's cupboard and be like, I'm not eating that, it's not healthy. I'm not eating that, that's not healthy enough. Or and it would cause a bit of tension, especially for, you know, my grandma lives with my family, and she's of that generation that is that post-war,
Right.
you're grateful for food, and you should eat what's in front of you.
Yep.
And I'd be sitting there saying, oh, I'm not going to eat that because that's bread, or I'm not going to eat that because that's carbs. And so that was there's kind of been happening, but then just continually getting into yoga, really exploring other ways to manage my mental health is what really started to, and I say I've kind of created a toolkit, if you like. And the toolkit involves, you know, practicing yoga and meditation. I slowly came off the medication, and I do try and eat a balanced diet. For me personally, and I have so much respect for people that are vegan, vegetarian, you know, but absolutely, one of my best friends is vegan, she's incredible.
Yep.
For me, one of my coping strategies is actually that I now try very hard not to label myself or identify myself as something, because that fuels the obsessive thoughts.
Sure.
And it fuels that piece of control.
Yeah.
And actually, what best serves me is to have a balance. And if I want to eat a pepperoni pizza, which I have been known to do, especially when I drink, then I'm going to do that, and let it go, and not obsess over that. And I find things like journaling very helpful, and also therapy.
Yep.
So I am a huge advocate of therapy. I work for my online therapy now, so it would be worrying if I wasn't.
It's a good advert, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. And it really, because I had never even heard of orthorexia, and because like I said, I've never been underweight.
Yeah.
I have times demonstrated some of the behaviors of the other more traditional eating disorders, but I have, I've never been underweight. I'm healthy, I exercise, I eat. And so it's classically, you wouldn't say I have an eating disorder, but what I do align with is that I have had disordered eating.
Yeah.
And then it was my therapist that actually brought the term orthorexia to me, and it actually made me think things differently. And I think because I have such an interest in this area, as I said, because my degree's in psychology, and you know, I'm super passionate about mental health and well-being, I do a lot of reading and research around it, and it just really did make sense. And I think there is a balance, and I guess what I'd like people to maybe take away from this is that it's not how do I say it? It's, you know, anyone can be suffering from something, and my absolute like mantra at the moment, especially in lockdown number whatever it is that we're in, is to be kind to other people and be kind to yourself, because it is a challenge right now for people for all different types of reasons. And I think that's all we can really try and do, is just be kinder to ourselves, but being open. And I think taking that that's, as I mentioned at the beginning, any kind of mental health disorder can really, it fuels off secrecy. And so being able to talk to somebody, whether that is a therapist, and I know sitting here how, you know, lucky I am to be able to have the resources to have a therapist. But we have a wonderful, in our country, you know, I know you're a Samaritan, and we have the NHS, and we do have, you know, services like my own therapy that offers online therapy that offers digital psychologist support. So those services are out there, and I just think, yeah, talking about it is super important.
It is, and I'm just really inspired by listening to your story. You've shared some things that, you know, this is what the story's about. It's your journey, you own it, you recognize it, and you're doing what you need to do to keep yourself well. And that toolkit's such a wonderful idea, and not just to limit ourselves to only one train of thought or one thing that works for me. It's got to be a number of different elements. And I really love that sort of as a as a bit of context to what you've got. So you explained your toolkit, you explained what's in there. I would like to go back, if that's okay, to a couple of points. Just sort of get your thoughts and feelings around that sort of developing the anxiety, the early signs. What was happening at the time? Can you define that a little bit, or give some more sort of insights into what you were feeling and what was going on?
Yeah, I think as a teenager, kind of developing anxiety and be operating in that fight or flight mode, it was other people, I think my mum, picking up on that energy and really talking to me and saying, you know, do you understand that you don't have to feel this way all the time, and actually we can look at ways that we can try and support that, because it's, I think we've talked about this before, about it's okay to not be okay.
Yeah.
Of course it is, and I think that's really important, and that's part of me telling my story today, is that I really want to be authentic and share that it's okay to not be okay, but equally it's not okay to not be okay all the time.
Yeah.
And so for me it was actually external factors and having that support network that kind of flagged to me. But then when I really tried to start to intervene, that was more about, I really started to recognize that I couldn't carry on really operating without sleep. That was a big thing for me.
Yeah.
So those early signs, I think, be open to, if other people are commenting, or they're coming from a good place, I think,
Yeah.
majority of the time. And so if somebody else is recognizing that you are, you know, a bit irritable, or you're, you know, what might be perceived as irrationally worrying about something, or then listen if someone else is pointing that out, but also talk to somebody. But it is hard to recognize, isn't it?
It is. And I think what what you're saying is absolutely right. The challenge is we don't like to accept that we've got a problem in the first place, though, right? You know,
Yeah.
I denied for a long time that I had any issues. It was everybody else, you know, it was nothing to do. And it's exactly that principle, isn't it? Of, you know, nothing bad happens in my house.
Yeah.
Bad things do happen in everybody's house, unfortunately. And it's hard to accept.
Yeah, of course, definitely. And you can be quick to, oh, well, I'm going to change my job, or I'm going to change this, or you look externally for the stuff you can control.
Yep.
And actually, sometimes just being quiet and just sitting with yourself, that's when things can surface and you can really start to recognize what's going on. Because I think so often we mask, and I know I've been super guilty of this over my life, mask what's going on by operating 100 miles an hour, building this persona of what you want the outside world to see you as, and working very hard to be busy all of the time and fill your days with distractions, when actually, and it can be really tough, but actually what we need is quiet, and to just sit with you, who you are in that moment, and what it is you're feeling. And that can be it can be really hard, but it can be really powerful.
Yeah, well, it is hard when people feel like the life's 100 miles an hour, when you're being stimulated all the time by conversations, comments, and thoughts. And there's lots of, not saying intrusive thoughts, but we do have a lot of things going on in our brains that.
And we're so, I mean, and me personally, my mind is so busy a lot of the time. And I've told you before, I went to India to do my yoga teacher training. I went for a month, and every single day, every morning, we would, after our 2-hour practice in the morning, we would have an hour, we'd have 30 minutes of silence, and then we'd have an hour of meditation. And I tell you, that first week, I struggled so much to sit still. But I was constantly twitching and moving and thinking about a million other things. And but by the end of the month, and I know that not everyone is not fortunate enough to be able to go and have that experience, but even if you just start small with some kind of self-care techniques, you can start really small, a couple of minutes at a time, and it does get easier. And the impact that can have can really be profound, especially if you are struggling with that kind of obsessive overthinking types of behaviors.
And you've taken that to another level though, right? So you went and did that training, and now you deliver that to help support other people, right? So that's amazing.
Oh, and I love it. It's especially in lockdown, it's the highlight of my week, teaching everybody online. We did a Women's Day class on Monday, which was great. And seeing other people that might not have even ever come to yoga start to, because they think, oh, she's my friend, I have to, which is what I'm sure some out at the beginning when I first qualified.
But you know what, we have to use our networks, right?
Yeah, exactly. And
exactly.
And I think that it's that's I love that. I love being able to share yoga, and then moving into my current role, as partnerships with my online therapy, I'm living and breathing what I truly believe is a wonderful service. And you know yourself how great that is. And we have an app with a whole range of self-care tools and techniques, which are essentially audio therapy. And when I first started that first week, I just sat for like 2 hours going through all this stuff, and I was like, this is amazing. And so I feel very, very lucky that I've managed to cultivate a life that's aligned with something that has genuinely helped me.
And when we spoke a little while ago, not on this call, and a few weeks ago when we were sort of prepping for this discussion and some other things that we were talking about, we mentioned this word ikigai.
Yes,
I wanted to bring that in because from what you're saying, and for anybody that doesn't understand ikigai, it's about sort of all the core elements of you as an individual coming together to give you happiness, or to find a space that means that you found your why, isn't it? It's about finding. So where do you feel you fit on your ikigai map at the moment?
Yes.
Sorry if I pronounce it incorrectly for anybody that's listening.
No, I think it's ikigai. So I have a coach now, Caroline. She's a wonderful human, and she recommended ikigai for me at the book, and I read it. And for me, it's the yoga, it's the mission of my current company. It all sits within that absolute sense of purpose, because I love yoga myself. So selfishly, teaching, I love it. I feel that I'm doing good in the world, and I get paid for it. So that and it's all of those things, isn't it? What's the other petal? There's 4. I can't remember.
Oh, you're testing me now, aren't you? I haven't got it in front of me. No. I haven't got it in front of me. Now I've exposed myself.
But it's work. It's your purpose. It's your what you believe in, but that's also something that you love, that you are able to get. It's your work. So I feel like
it's balance.
Definitely. And balance is so important for me, and I say that all the time to my students, that for me, life is all about balance. That's part of don't be too hard on yourself, be kind.
There you go.
I'm gonna sit here and pretend that I'm perfect, and I've definitely I'm at the end of my journey, because that's not true. I think we're all always on a journey, and
Oh, absolutely. We're all on a journey. This journey of mental health is not one that, we're ever going to step out of. We're always going to have it there. It's always going to be impacted. And what I absolutely love, Sadie, is that you've been through experiences. I'm not saying I love the experiences that you've been through, but what I love is that you can take those experiences and find your reason or your purpose or your why, in that shape. And it's so important in these conversations of mental health that we continue to process those thoughts in a logical, methodical way that helps us to see purpose, I think. Do you agree?
Yeah, definitely, completely agree.
And I don't think anything that you've shared should make anybody look at you any differently than better, if that makes sense, because you're authentic and genuine about who you really are. And I love that you can own that and really say that out loud, you know. So I total respect for that, really. I'm being really kind to you, of course, you know. Kind, I heard the thing about be kind, so I thought, oh, better be kind. You know, so last few minutes, really, what do you see the future looking like for Sadie? What's the next step in your
That's a
journey?
big question.
Not the 5-year plan, but just
Yeah.
what would you like?
Well, for me, just continuing to develop, you know, my yoga teaching. I'm constantly reinvesting in myself to try and make myself a better teacher. You know, I'd love to explore retreats and bringing in that therapy piece alongside the yoga. So, yeah, I feel like I'm where I'm supposed to be right now. But yeah, continually growing and actually a big part of that, like this has been a big step in my journey, just having this conversation with you, because I mean I love Brene Brown, and she talks a lot about vulnerability, and you know, I told you before we did this, I feel really vulnerable coming here and talking about this subject, but I think it's really important to be authentic, and so yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what the next kind of the rest of the year when we are free.
That's what we're all looking forward to. I hope, you know, if anybody's listening to this after we're out of restrictions and lockdown, then obviously we were talking about the when I'm free, it's like you're shackled and chained to I can't leave ever again. I'm not allowed out. Oh, it's incredible. Incredible.
Looking forward. I just can't wait to be able to like hug my friends and my family, and What about you?
I'm just you've thrown me into it, haven't you? What am I looking forward to, or what are my plans?
What are you looking forward to?
I think similar, actually. Hugging my friends, seeing my family, you know, properly see my family, have some time with people who I haven't had the chance to spend time with over all the lockdowns and everything else. And yeah, we're due a party. We lost an uncle, so it's sort of, you know, we're due a family gathering at some point. Get together, not gathering. Sounds wrong, doesn't it? So yeah, you know, I'm just looking forward to simple stuff, really. Just nothing. I'm not that bothered about looking forward to a massive holiday or anything like that, which is nice. But that's not my priority. My priority is to reconnect to loved ones, close family, friends and stuff. Simple stuff. Simple life that I lead. Okay, so we're right at the end, and I just want to say a huge thank you again, just to, you know, for being open, for sharing what you've shared, for insight, you know, the insights that you've given, and it's just been incredible. And to look at you on the screen and to see this person that's glowing and they're on their journey and their passions, and you're living and breathing what you love, which is great. Final thoughts from you? Any final words to share? Wisdom points?
Just thank you so much for having me. And I think just final words would be, as I said before, like be kind to yourself, be kind to others, and share, because I think sharing can really help you, and also it can really deepen your connection with other people. Actually, I spent a lot of time feeling kind of fearful and shame around sharing, and actually I think that when you do start to open up about how you're feeling, you'll be amazed at how wonderful your support network will be about it. So yeah.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, brilliant. So the big thought, be kind, share, don't be afraid. You know, it really is useful. That brings it nicely into the end of that, which is when I talk about closing this and saying, if you are struggling, if there are things that Sadie's talked about in her story or her journey that she, you know, might manifest itself or might recognize in yourself, always know there is somebody there to talk to. Always know there is somebody who cares. Really, it's true. It really is. And I know it doesn't always feel that way. If you're in a dark space and you're difficult, don't see ways out, know there's somebody there. Samaritans exist today for exactly that reason. You know, we're there to listen, not to judge. On 116 123, you can call anytime. I'm sure if anybody had any questions about what Sadie's been talking about, you'd be more than happy, Sadie, to
Feel free to reach out to me directly. Absolutely.
Brilliant. And similarly to me as well, for anybody listening, if you want to reach out to me, feel free to. It's about accessibility. That's what I love about this story, this podcast, is you can contact us, you can get hold of us. You don't have to go through an agent or a manager. Not yet, but you know, this is
one day.
Well, you never know. No, I'm not. That's not my ambition. But this is important. Keep talking about mental health. Sadie, thank you so much. I really appreciate everything. You look after yourself. Stay safe. Cheers.